Coming up on UGTV, Standing Committee Meetings of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. We begin with a meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee. This will be followed by the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee.
Comment is welcome on our items, and if you wish to speak on an item on the agenda, you can do that when the item is up. You have up to 3 minutes to state your comments, and we would ask at that time that you would come forward to the microphone to be recognized and speak directly into the microphone for accurate recording purposes. I want to thank Commissioner Brian McKiernan. He is sitting in tonight in the absence of Commissioner Mike Kane. Could I have the clerk call the roll, please?
Roll call: Groneman. Here. Philbrook.
Here.
Markley.
Here.
McKernan.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
And Bynum.
Here. Tonight we have one revision. Mr. Bob Wing had requested an appearance be scheduled to speak this evening. However, he has asked that that be deferred to our October 21 meeting, so we did pull that item from the public agenda. And the first order of business we have is minutes from July 22nd. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Madam Chairman, I'll abstain because I was not present for that meeting.
Thank you, and the minutes are approved. There are 4 items on our agenda tonight, and item number 1 is our VOCA, fiscal 20 VOCA grant, and we have Wendy Medina, is that correct, from our police department. So if you'll give us some remarks about this grant process.
My name is Wendy Medina, and I'm the program supervisor for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department's Victim Services Unit. And this year, we are requesting permission to submit an application and accept the VOCA Victims of Crime Act grant for fiscal year 2020. So VOCA has funded the Victim Services Unit since our inception in 1999. Currently, 3 full-time VSU personnel are currently funded by VOCA at 75%, and we have 2 full-time positions at the Order Protection Office, also funded by VOCA at 100%. So if Victim Services Unit is not able to receive VOCA funding, it would be reduced to 1 advocate, and that would significantly limit our services available to victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and survivors of homicide. The current VOCA grant in 2019 has provided about $300,000 in federal funds, with KCKPD contributing 20% in match. For the 2020 fiscal year, the proposed budget requests $369,685 in federal funds, with a required $92,422 in match, comprised of cash and in kind, as we have historically done, to be contributed by the KCKPD. So that moderate increase is just due to a reclassification of 2 staff members, as well as 1 promotion and the attributed benefits to those, and also to reflect 12 months of salary for PFA Advocate 2, as opposed to the 6 months from this fiscal year. Funding would also provide advanced skill training for advocates. In 2020, the Victim Services Unit expects to be completely staffed with a program supervisor, 2 response advocates, 2 advocates at the Order Protection Office, and 1 administrative aide. We're really not asking for anything new within this program. The only difference is that we will be staffed at full capacity. In summary, I am requesting from VOCA a modest increase in federal funds and utilizing existing match, resulting in absolutely no additional funds from the police department than already committed.
Great.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have roll call, please?
Roll call: Groneman.
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
McKernan,
Aye.
Johnson, and Bynum.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. The numbers
Apologize.
on the sheet, I'm sorry.
We'll suspend our voting just for a minute, and we'll, because I failed to acknowledge Commissioner Johnson for
No,
a comment.
and I just got reminded about what I was going to ask, and I thought I thought I was wrong, but the federal match, how much is that federal match?
92,422,
I'm sorry, not the federal, not the match, the large amount, the federal amount.
369,685. That is a little bit different from your notes. Is that where you were
Okay,
confused?
yeah, I was just a little,
Yeah, it's a little bit off because since then, I did the crunching of the numbers a little bit more, and it's off by a couple thousand. So the amount that I mentioned today is actually
A
less.
little bit less.
very good. I'm good then.
Okay. I think you made your way up to Johnson, is that right, in your voting? Okay. Johnson?
Aye.
And Bynum.
Aye, and that carries. Thank you so much. Sorry, that was a little clunky on the voting, but we got it done. Item 2, we have an agreement with Lyon County to house inmates. And we have Assistant Counsel Susan Alig here to share this item with us. Counselor?
Good evening. I have a resolution here that would authorize the unified government to enter into an agreement with Lyon County to house inmates when we need to relieve our population pressures in our local jail.
I just have one question. Do we know the per-day cost, and is it different from agreements we might have with other jurisdictions?
We have an existing agreement with Lyon County. It's just in an older format, so we're updating. The existing agreement is $40 a day, and I expect $40 a day. I expect that it will remain the same.
Okay. Any other comment or question on this item?
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second on the item. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Groneman. Aye. Philbrook,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
McKernan,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
and Bynum.
Aye, and that motion carries. Item 3, we have, thank you very much. Item 3, we have an update on our unified government energy usage, and we have John Kelly here, Director of Building and Logistics, and several staff folks here to join in. And Mr. Kelly, I will hand this over to you.
All right, thank you, and good evening, Commissioner, Administration, and other key staff. As you said, we're here to give an energy use update on some projects that we've done in the past and also some projects that we plan on doing in the future and some kind of other smaller projects that are we're continue to do throughout some of our facilities with some LED lighting. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Greg and we'll get started with the presentation.
All right.
Thank you, John. First building we're going to talk about is here at City Hall at 701 North 7th Street in downtown Kansas City, Kansas. City Hall was the second of 2 buildings that received a treatment package addressing building systems retrofitting with energy-conserving upgrades. The first of which we will talk about is the windows illustrated here to the left. On this slide, the installation of the windows throughout the building, top to bottom, side to side. The next picture to the right is a picture of energy-efficient boilers that were also installed. In addition, a chiller system that was installed that is also a high-efficient chiller system. Lastly, on the bottom, you'll see a picture of our insulated roof system. This, along with a lighting package that was introduced to this building starting back to 2010 and had elongated through the 2019 period. Our efforts continue today, but each one of these major systems are complete at this time. And the energy savings have been quite dramatic, which we will illustrate in a chart very soon.
Whoa. Why don't we just give us a second here, and we got staff here that will get this corrected.
John, it's good thing you're
Well, you
here.
got the guys.
lighting and.
Oh, that'll break the tension.
Thank you, gentlemen.
See where I am? I know, but I said, see where I am. How about if you get a real ladder? And do it. Sure. Well. Yay. Good thing Mike isn't here. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. John, do you want to get a letter, or do you want to?
I think we could go ahead and get started. I think if Commissioner McKiernan stays to the one side and the other, but
And Commissioner.
unfortunately, I apologize that happened, but I think we can go ahead and continue.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, well, now we are so rudely interrupted. The next building we're going to talk about was the first of the two buildings I had mentioned previously, and that's the Court Services Building located at 812 North 7th Street. It also was privy to this package treatment with some of the building systems, the first of which is illustrated in the picture to the left, which are lights. So we updated the lights throughout the building, each and every room. Following that, we updated the bathrooms with low-flow flush valves installed on all the fixtures throughout the building. The sinks were included in this. And finally, at the bottom picture, you see a chiller that was installed in 2011 as well. Finally, the building that we're going to last talk about is a real fan favorite and probably mine as well, and that's Memorial Hall sitting at 600 North 7th Street. The first picture I'm going to talk about is the picture on the upper left, and you can see the windows are being addressed. This is the final, we are in the final stages of a three-phase approach to this. For about 6 to 8 years, we've been addressing the windows at Memorial Hall with double-hung, double-pane windows. They're very efficient. They meet the Historical Society standards for improvements on historical buildings, and they've made a dramatic effect on the energy conservation that you will see in a graph that we will illustrate here shortly. Next to that is a picture of piping. I couldn't get a picture of the chillers actually, but it's the piping associated with the new chiller system we just installed. That project, as you may know, went underway in the third quarter of last year and finished in the second quarter of this year. So for the first time, Memorial Hall is able to treat with air conditioning and also heating every single room in the building rather than an all-on, all-off approach as it's been in the past. And we've had dramatic results in energy savings with that as well. Finally, the picture on the bottom shows the auditorium ceiling and the LED lighting that we have replaced. Each one of these LED floodlights are 100-watt consumers of energy, whereas before the incandescent lights were 750 watts. Of course, one of the previous lights was doing the work as far as energy consumption goes as 7.5 of these lights. So these lights give us superior lighting. It's a more consistent lighting over a longer period of time, and it doesn't have the strain on our lighting infrastructure as the old bulbs, as you can imagine, had high consumption of energy or amperage, more specifically speaking. So now we're into the fun facts portion of this demonstration, and we're going to get to talk about some of the numbers. We won't go into this too heavily, but there's a couple things that we want to point out. This really illustrates the gains that our efforts have had here at the Unified Government in energy consumption or conservation. And so this graph is the years 2017 to 2019 at Memorial Hall. And if we look and focus on the graph to the left, that is a graph of overall consumption for a year's time at Memorial Hall. And that spans, of course, 2017 to 2019. As you can see, the consumption ticked up slightly in 2018. However, there are two reasons for this. The first of being it was a hotter summer in 2018 than it was in 2017. The second is we had an uptick in events held at Memorial Hall. So this minor uptick, I think, is a real reflection to the window treatments that had been done to the building at this time. Then since then, you can see a fairly dramatic downward move of the graph at this point in time, it's about a 19.3% overall savings in consumption. Of course, the year's not done yet, but I think it's, we can project this forward with Memorial Hall and expect to see this downward trend continue.
Greg, would you mention when the new chillers were installed?
Yes, well, they were installed in 2018. That started in the third quarter of 2018.
Right, so they weren't on during last year's summer, so the uptick, I think this year, the reason you're gonna see that downward trend is we have replaced the HVAC or chillers, as they're calling it, so.
Yes.
And then we're currently doing the rest of the windows, so.
But as we have, have been working with BPU staff on, you know, kind of doing this internal audit so we can capture all of our buildings going into the future, showing how we're doing our part, you know, conserving energy. We did find in certain years where we went back and looked at that data where we had real drastic hot summers, and it just happened to be 18 was one of them. But like I said, the new system that got approved, we started that project in the fall of 18, and it's been running this summer over there with the new system. And it's the next slide that Greg's going to talk about here is really going to be a kind of an eye opener just to show you what the new equipment has done versus in previous years with the old equipment.
Exactly, so thank you for that. Yes, of course, the installation of the equipment at Memorial Hall, both the LED lighting and the chillers, didn't take place until the cooling system for 2018 was over. So we didn't realize any real energy savings at that point other than what the windows had helped us with. So from 2018 to 19 is going to be this dramatic result that you're going to see, and I think that's going to be well exemplified by the chart on the right. So this is a one-day occurrence, excuse me, or consumption of energy for a like event at Memorial Hall over the last 3 years. So on August 9th of 2017, the USD 500 held what we call, or they call their convocation. It's a rally of sorts, and it packs the building to capacity. It's about a 3,100 person event, depending on the count that you might get, but that's the capacity. And so it's a rally. They bring all their staff, personnel, and teachers to this in anticipation of the year to come. So you could see the general usage of energy in 2017 and that slight uptick again to 2018. And I think that the windows staved that off from being even a steeper slope. But the dramatic effect is from 2018 to 2019. And I don't know if we can see it here. So this is 2018, August 8th of 2018, and this downward trend to August 6th of 2019 shows the dramatic results of savings at about a 33% clip. And I could tell you that this particular event in 2019, for the first time, the USD 500 asked to use the ballroom in addition to the auditorium because of an overflow crowd. Of course, the capacity of the ballroom for a standing room only event is about 300 to 350, so it was about a 10% increase in usage for that day with an overall 33% decline in energy consumption for that very same event. So I think those are dramatic results, and as our efforts continue here at Memorial Hall and throughout the unified government, I think that we can expect this trend to continue. Finally, we'll look at energy consumption at the Court Services Building and the City Hall building. This will span the area from 2010 to 2019. These are really the package treatments that John had deployed from that period of time, starting out mostly with lighting in the beginning and the other major treatments that I referenced earlier. So once again, if we look at this graph analysis, we see an overall decline from 2010 with micro ticks here and there. Those are anomalies of one sort or the other, but I can tell you overall this is a 26% decline in energy usage from 2010 to 2019. Same with City Hall, very likewise. These are dissimilar buildings that received a similar approach in energy conservation. And once again, we see a similar downtrend in energy consumption beginning in 2010. And ending up in 2019, and that's an overall 24% decline with an average 25% decline in energy consumption at this point in time. So I think the unified government could feel well assured that as our treatments move forward with any other buildings that we do, and our efforts continue in these buildings as others, because there's always something to do, that we can expect a continued downward trend. So having said that, I think I'm going to hand this off to Laura Landis, our colleague here at Buildings and Logistics and the architect for the unified government.
Thank I am here to present to you what some folks refer to as light emitting diodes, better known to us as LEDs. Buildings and Logistics Division is continuing to achieve lower energy consumption, and we are continuing to do so in the future. So let's take a look at some of the work we have completed in the last year. In the upper left-hand corner, you see the police department. We have, these are the police headquarters located at 7th and Minnesota. We installed LED lighting in the public spaces such as the lobbies, hallways, and conference rooms. Gives it a crisp, fresh look, don't you think? To the right of the police department is our health department, and this is a recent photo taken of the lighting as it exists today. What we did in the last year was replace the old mercury vapor lighting around the lower roof perimeter and installed with new LED lights. It has made a significant difference in the appearance of the building. Parking lot C at the lower left-hand corner is located at 7th and Armstrong. And I can attest to this being a juror and parking in the parking garage. Oh my gosh, this picture makes it look so much better. This is showing an LED lighting installation in the lower level. And we have also completed all of the LED lighting installation in the stairwells. This parking garage, by the way, is next door to our Security National Bank friends who park in the garage also. We are also not only continuing to retrofit the lighting in the upper levels, but also to enhance the building as well through cleaning and painting of it as well. Then to the right of the parking garage C is the election office. The front office lighting was converted from fluorescent fixtures to LEDs, and it's a clearer lighting indeed. You want to flip that? Okay, thank you. Next, I'm also would like to share with you 2 of our new facilities under construction. These are 2 of our current projects. The Juvenile Justice Center, just not very far across, basically across the street from this facility, and the new fire station number 12 located at Hutton and Leavenworth Road are some of our finest examples being built with energy, conserving energy in mind that will last well into the future. I would also like to recognize at this time the Fire Department and Parks and Recreation for also being a great energy-saving stewards with their energy program initiatives. Speaking of the Fire Department, most of, if not all of the apparatus bays in their facilities have been retrofitted to LED lighting. Our Fleet Center is something that we want to recognize also. Don't have a slide on this one, but as of last week, we completed the total LED conversion, both on the heavy side and the light side of the facility. So it is really going to enhance that facility and make it so much more efficient to work in. I want to thank you for your time, and does anyone have any further questions?
Comments, Commissioner McKiernan?
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for your work. I mean, you're making great strides in reducing our usage, which is more environmentally friendly and also more budget friendly, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the switch to LED lights, but have we considered 2 other things that I think we could do? First, an education campaign. If you're not in your office, if you're not in that meeting room, if you're not in that bathroom, turn off the darn light. I see lots of unoccupied rooms in this building that are lit. Following up that, have we considered maybe motion-sensitive switches with timers on the back end so that if there's no motion in a room, you don't even have to remember to turn off the lights. They turn off automatically and then turn on with the return of a body to that room.
Yep. Well, to answer both of those questions, Commissioner, I agree. I think a lot of it becomes educational on letting people, staff from UG to state employees or even contract employees. Just as early as last week, I had sent out an email early asking everybody to partake in trying to help achieve better energy savings and conserving, because you're right. And folks in my office, or, there's multiple people I walk through and see lights are burning, or computer monitors are on, or TVs and such. So we did send this out, and I'm going to continue to make sure that we work with Edwin's office and HR, that we keep pushing this, and I'm going to essentially try to, with this whole thing, with the statistics that we've done here tonight, be able to come back maybe second quarter of 20 and kind of look to see how that's trended just by some of those initiatives. But also, we have in court service, we do have some of the lighting features that you talked about that are motion sensor. We have found in certain situations that some people do like those, and then some people don't, because if they're in their office for a period of time, they're not really moving around, they go off. But
Wave your arms, they'll come back.
yeah, and so there are things that we are looking for, Commissioner, that in the future that are small, kind of small hanging fruit, things that won't really impact my budget by doing those things. We plan on doing that into the future. And like I said, even here at City Hall, when we did the energy upgrade from T12 to T8s, our staff is going to start implementing LED to where we really start making savings. Because not only that, but it cuts down on my maintenance piece. Our guys are going and changing these light bulbs maybe every few months when they burn out. So there are some things that we're going to take steps, and we're going to keep trying to send this message out that we sent out last week about asking everybody to help conserve energy.
Before I yield my microphone, I'll turn to our administrative staff who are here and say, gosh, I think they could really use some help from your end in encouraging all of our employees to turn it off if we're not using it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
As a BPU representative on this committee, I'd like to thank you for all your conservation efforts and things that you've done to make this work for everybody. I will take this message back to our next board meeting, let them all know everything that's going on. Well, I appreciate that, Tom. I also, like I said, I want to thank BPU tonight, and also another staff member of mine, Tim Nick, worked on this a lot with Jeremy Ash and some of their key people, because like I said, the way some of our billing comes in through for city structures is kind of a tough thing to look at. When talking with the administration on how to present this tonight, it took some key people to sit down and really try to figure out how we could show this to you on paper, that we are making steps and that we want to continue to make steps. So I appreciate BPU's efforts as well. And a lot of times that information is not passed along to the board, and we are not aware of a lot of the things that you are doing. Yep. And that'll be taken care of at the next meeting. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you. And again, I echo everything that's been said. I in my normal job, switched over to LED, and I've already been able to see the difference in the crispness. It's very clean, but also we've been able to see a difference in the dollar savings as well. So with that, having said that, how long does it on average does it take to receive a break even in terms of the amount that expended versus the cost reductions that we realized on average when you do upgrades from the old system to the new system?
Well, I think if you're, different components are different. Are you just referring to maybe like a LED light bulb as far as their savings? I don't have that information at my fingertips. We could come back and give you that type of information. But I know some of the projects that we've done here at City Hall and over at the court service on our energy audit projects that, we're still paying those back. But like I said, with seeing the graph that we've had is a drastic decline. And then I think probably when we started these projects in 2010, what the kilowatt cost was per what it is now, which is roughly for us around 10 cents per kilowatt. So I don't know if that quite answers your question on that return.
Well, I guess I know that every project will be different depending on the scope of it and a lot of other variables. But it just seems to me that at some point on average, we see a break even in the overall cost that we expend versus the reduction in cost over time. I'm just wondering, is that 3 years, 5 years, on average on a project like that?
If I might, what I can tell you is some of the cost-benefit analysis, like John says, show different results for different systems that are treated. So I think probably the way that we would look at this is a whole solutions approach. And so if you look at it that way, it's going to put it out 10, 15, 20 years, I'm sure. However, with the example that I gave with the auditorium lighting at Memorial Hall, that was a drastic 83% reduction for that treatment alone in energy consumption. So you wouldn't expect to see that type of variance with like a chiller replacement. But all of these things in total head us in the direction that we would want to go, and are rest assured, since this would be the tactics that we would employ from this point forward, that it's well worth the effort to do, and there would be no reason not to sustain that approach because the benefits do pay off.
I agree to that for sure. So thank you.
And the lighting is the biggest piece. It's, all these other things that the engineers are getting smarter, and a lot of the international codes for different things for the, mechanical equipment are really coming down, but it's all about the lighting. So if we continue to get people to partake, and like the Commissioner McCarron said, on turning things off, and like I said, we're going to continue that goal to try to get that achieved so we can try to get these costs down.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook, had I seen you? No. Okay. All right. We want to thank all of you. And I want to just take this opportunity, John, to thank you and your staff for everything you do, because you just seem to always be taking care of everything, and we really appreciate it. You keep all the buildings operating, and everywhere we go, you just seem to be there helping. So we really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thanks. And I did fail, before I do let you step away, I did fail to find out if there were any one from the public that wanted to make any comments or address this item. And I see no one stepping forward. So now, thank you again. And our last item on this agenda is a street sweeping pilot project, and we have our Deputy Public Works Director, Mr. Young, here, coming forward here to talk to us about this program. And other members of his team.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to speak today. Really following up on John Kelly's magic show. Next, we are going to have some of the flags fall. Emmerich, you might want to move. We have a clicker that I can use. Thank you. As I am well known for my very lengthy and wordy presentations, we will get down to this one. Today, we're talking about street sweeping, specifically in Armourdale and Argentine. A few things that have happened over the last 6 months. We have restructured our streets division, creating teams in that street division, and those teams have focused on areas like pavement preservation, traffic, which includes street sweeping, and vegetation management. And each one of those teams has been evaluating very specific practices around the work that they do. One of the things we have realized and tried a pilot project with our street sweeping group is to take 2 street sweepers and 1 dump truck and partner them together to sweep a given area. The previous practice was 1 street sweeper and 1 dump truck. What we realized is we can be twice as effective actually by combining the 2 street sweepers, because the 1 dump truck holds significantly more carriage capacity than the 2 street sweepers can fill up in a day. So we've seen a significant increase in our productivity with our street sweepers. And so looking at that significant increase, we thought, what should we be doing with that additional capacity? So being able to sweep all of the arterial streets several times a year, check. Being able to sweep every neighborhood at least 1 time a year, check. But we have some areas of our city that are low-lying and have combined sewers. And those 2 areas here on the screen are in Argentine and in Armourdale. And so what would it look like if we could sweep some of those areas more frequently, trying to help keep the grates clear? So to identify these areas specifically, we went into our asset database and looked at how many times we had to clean a grate inlet. And these 2 areas, the one on Kansas Avenue, I know the streets aren't super clear, over here on the right side of the image, probably the largest number of requests we get in the entire city and county. And then the area to the left of the map in Argentine, That area is also an area that has a higher frequency of requests, but we actually just go down there in advance of every rainstorm now and clean those out. And just because we know it's a problem area. So we looked at that and we said, okay, what would we do in these areas with this additional street sweeping capacity? And we said, okay, we should probably start with a pilot project to look at sweeping these streets twice a week. We were looking at specifically, the problem with our current program is we allow parking on both sides of the street, and we're just running the sweeper down the center of the street. So we're never getting the curb line. So if we were going to do this project, in this pilot project, we would actually look at allowing parking on one side of the street. So for example, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, on Tuesdays you would park on the north and east side, and on Thursday you would park on the south and west side. And then we would come through, sweep the curb line, the gutter line, and we would do that once a week. And the idea was, could we actually reduce the number of times we're getting a request to clean out these grate inlets due to vegetation and trash? That would be our measurement of success. So we started looking at specifically, how many parking places do we have? In this particular neighborhood, we have 7,000 parking places. You'll see on the map some different colors. If the map street segment shows blue, that means it has at least one handicap space on it. If it's yellowish orange, partial no parking is on that street. Red is no parking, and green is no restrictions at all. So we were analyzing our other neighborhood with the same color code, and we've got about 3,000 parking spots in that neighborhood. So in our Armourdale area, we did a study, and we went out every Wednesday and we counted every car for a month that was parked in that area. And we found that about, say again? What time of day? Morning, noon, thank you. Noon, I get it. Not the best time, but it's the time we had. So, and we're proposing, again, as we get into this discussion, is we would do the street sweeping in the morning every day. So 698 or 10% of the parking spaces are occupied when we did our survey for a month, about 11% in Argentine. Same issue. So we have quite a bit of parking capacity during the day, specifically. What we looked at is the business hours in both of these areas. Do we have enough parking space? We've got 80% if we were looking at everything during business hours on our busiest streets. Is that correct? Yep. To look at, could we do this on the arterial streets as well in these areas? It'd be a little bit tougher, but it's possible. We would have to limit the hours that we would do it. So we would probably do it first thing in the morning. So maybe a 2-hour window where we would park on one side of the street or the other. What we found out is 80% of our spaces are open in these neighborhoods. There's no restriction if we looked at limiting parking to one side of the road or the other. So we can do this project. The question is, should we? We were also asked to look at the elementary schools that are in this area. Both schools have on-site parking, so they would not be affected. And then we met with all of the internal departments of the city. We met with the police and the fire and our parking department and our planning department and our street sweeping group. And we asked them, should we do this? Is this a good idea? And around the discussion, everybody thought it was a great idea. The question was, how do we do the public engagement? This is a bilingual community. How would we do this to make sure it's successful? So we would propose to do two things. One, to engage public involvement, and that would be done in the spring of 2020. And we would put up 1,100 signs, which is 2 signs per block face. So each side of the block would get 2 signs, and those would be bilingual signs. You have some examples in your packet. I think these are just examples. And the total project cost for our proposal is $172,000. The lion's share of that is in the signage, $147,000 for the signs, and $25,000 for the public involvement. We didn't want to go any further without engaging this group. and talking with you. Specifically, there are 99 blocks in the project study area. And for a $172,000 investment, we think we can sweep those streets, the full, both sides, curb line, once a week for 2 years. Because we're using existing capacity in our system made available by changing the way we do our operations. So I have brought Vincent Bellacci, our senior manager in our traffic group, Kevin Swearington, who's one of the senior managers in our WPC group, who we've worked together with on this project. And in the very back, we have Maddie, our Vista, who helped us do all the data collection for this project. So we would love to hear your feedback, questions, comments.
Commissioner McKiernan?
Why, gosh, thank you in advance, because I anticipate that the payoff from this will be magnificent. As you and I briefly discussed prior to this, I can only speak for Armourdale, but because of the fact that the streets are so very flat, and because there's typically a lot of rock and leaf and twig debris, it doesn't take any sort of a blockage at all in that curb gutter for everything to back up and pond so tremendously. And you're right, I've been there after some of our sweepers have gone through, and with cars on both sides of the streets, we hardly get any of the curb gutter actually done. I think that there will be some grumbling from people who are going to need to get used to our schedule. I believe there will be some grumbling from people who just don't think it needs to be done. But I think the payoff from this will be tremendous in terms of keeping down that localized flooding from the curb gutter being blocked. And also keeping our, because one of the other things I hear is that a lot of our storm inlets end up getting either plugged or getting full, which then really compounds the problem at an intersection where we're bringing all the curb gutters together. I think our most important thing is public engagement. And so on your signs, my question here was, do they mention all the payoff of the sweeping that's about to happen, or do they just say no parking?
We had toyed with several options. Super duper sweeping program signs. We're not sure yet, but it's a discussion to have. Specifically, people get passionate around their parking and when you want to propose a change to it. So the public engagement budget of $25,000 would be multiple neighborhood meetings, specific bilingual meetings targeted at the groups of people who live there.
Mr.
Have
Young,
that discussion.
can you pull your microphone just a little closer? Thank you.
I'm afraid it might fall over on me. I'm just kidding.
No, we
Second, Joe.
dropped it up.
Go ahead.
So my suggestion, my recommendation would be that whether it's signs or postcards, and I do think there would be some advantage to a postcard mailing, although there would be a cost to the same, that we should emphasize why and the benefit so that we give people the end game. You know, we're doing this to reduce flooding, improve, whatever it might be. Help paint the picture of the positive outcome that we want to produce beyond just saying, you can't park here on Tuesday. So that would be my suggestion. Thank you in advance. I think it's going to work well.
Other comments or questions? When do you, sir, you want to come to the microphone? If you would tell us your name and city of residence, and you'd have up to 3 minutes.
My name is Pavel. I live in Kansas City, Kansas, and I commute on a bicycle. And I think that the sides of the streets affect me the most. I'm familiar with the amount of dirt that accumulates on the sides of the streets because I've been doing it for over 5 years now. I have noticed that South 12th Street and the Metropolitan Ave, that intersection is really, really dirty, and I see it's not on the list. Every time I go by there, it's really, there's like a lot of glass and rubble. It would be really nice if that was cleaned up. But I think that once a week is way too much. I would recommend maybe once every 2 months. Thank you.
Thank you. I had
No,
a,
actually,
go ahead.
well, he makes an interesting point because coming down, especially on Argentine Boulevard, and, well, starting on 10th and then cutting over to 12th, is that 10th, 12th bike lane that we have. And so it's an interesting addition to that. Maybe consider the logical extension of the 10th, 12th bike lane or bike route, which would include 12th Street Bridge and might include that intersection down at the south end of 12th Street Bridge. Just something to consider.
Sure. Thank you for that.
Is it a pilot program?
So, in general, I think engineers really like to try something before we invest a lot of money in it. And so what we would like to do is try it for a period of 2 years.
Okay.
And look at the impact we have on water pollution control, specifically the number of requests. That's a very objective measurement. I think what's more interesting to me specifically is the impact on those neighborhoods, more around the cleanliness of the neighborhood. Does it have an impact on blowing trash in the neighborhood? Can we partner with Waste Management that they run the trash service on the same day, since we know everybody will be parked on one side? I think those are opportunities that we can work together on. And the expense of this, $175,000, is not a small amount of money, but it's 99 blocks that we're proposing. We would estimate somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 per block to put in stormwater. And we know we can't do that or afford to do that. So what we're trying to do is change some of our business practices to allow us to offset that additional capacity that is needed in some of these areas.
Other questions, comments? This is an information-only item, and thank you so much, but we do approve. And it is also our last item, and we thank you so much for all the research you've done, and we're looking forward to hearing your results. And I would note that we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that the public agenda item, the appearance of Mr. Wing, has been pulled and tabled till next month. So with that, Mr. Groneman, thank you as always. Appreciate you. And this meeting is adjourned, and we will hand this over to Commissioner Markley for Administration and Human Services.
All right. I will now call this meeting of the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee to order. We want to welcome everyone to the meeting. Public comment is welcome. Anyone wishing to speak on an item on the Standing Committee agenda may do so when the item is up for discussion. You'll have 3 minutes to state your comments. Everyone, please use your microphones. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Philbrook,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
McKernan,
Here?
Bynum,
Here.
and Markley.
Here. We do have a revision tonight. We have received a summary of the proposed changes and the revised policy itself for item number 3, the UG substance abuse and drug and alcohol testing information. So item still on the agenda. We just got slightly different information to go along with it. All right, first order of business is the minutes from our July 22nd meeting.
Move approval?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All opposed signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Madam Chairman, I'll abstain again because I wasn't present for that meeting.
Thank you. Those minutes have been approved. Going to give our clerk a moment to get back to her spot. We have a total of 6 items on our agenda this evening. Those first couple of items are related, and Justice Welker is here to talk about item 1, which is a request to eliminate Route 115 Kansas Avenue fixed transit route. Welcome, Justice.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. My items 1 and 2 will kind of merge into one another, so we'll just kind of go through the slideshow and then take questions for everything at the end, if that's okay. But I'm here this evening to seek approval to eliminate the 115 due to sustained underperformance, and then transition those existing resources to a new microtransit concept. Microtransit's a relatively new transit phenomenon that relies on flexible routing and scheduling using smaller vehicles within a restricted area. So we'll start with the 115 Kansas Avenue. This is a connector-style route that provides a functional connection from our transit center at 47th and State to localized jobs, and a majority of those jobs are along Speaker Road in the Santa Fe industrial area. It's the only route that currently provides service in Turner, and some major destinations within that route corridor include the 47th Street Transit Center, Santa Fe industrial area, Turner Rec, Jones Barbecue, Happy Foods West, Terrace Apartments, and Cambridge at River Oaks Apartments. We've got some information related to the levels of staffing it takes to run that route. We provided some route cost for the last 2 years and projected 2019 route costs. And then some reasons for elimination, and you can see how it performs against some key performance indicators that we kind of measure all of our routes against. So it hasn't performed very well here recently, and we think we can do a lot better with the resources and transitioning those to microtransit. And here's the route itself as it exists today. And again, it basically provides service to residents, to clients who want to travel from 47th and State to jobs along Speaker Road. And that kind of transitions us into microtransit. Again, microtransit's a flexible routing and scheduling using smaller vehicles within a restricted area. Some of the benefits of the microtransit are our integration with our fixed route system. So we're going to make a connection to 47th Street Transit Center. We're going to still accept all the fare media associated on those fixed routes. The fare structure will be the same. This will can be a first mile, last mile option for those folks who don't live along the transit route. We'll provide coverage to low-density corridors and remote neighborhoods. This is a curb-to-curb service, so the vehicle will come to the individual making the reservation. There is no advance reservation required. We'll have a dedicated app with real-time vehicle info, so the client can look up the vehicle and see where it is at any given time, when it's going to arrive, and et cetera. You can pay with exact cash on board through a website or through the app itself, and all the vehicles will be wheelchair lift equipped. And that's the proposed zone we're looking at there. It's hard to see, but it's basically State Avenue on the north, 72nd Street on the west, South 42nd or 42nd on the east, and then Metropolitan on the south. So the proposed zone is 10 square miles. It covers the entire area currently served by the 115 Kansas Avenue. Has the same destinations. We've also added a couple more, including Aldi and Skyline Apartments. And then the zone includes approximately 3 miles of new service area in the Turner community. Here's a little bit about Transloc, who's providing the software for the microtransit concept. Our next step, if we garner approval tonight, would be to do a simulation to see exactly how many staff and vehicles we need to operate the service. The booking solution, so the client will be able to book through the dedicated app. They can book through the website. They can still make a phone call and make a reservation that way. It will also be ride hailing, so if somebody sees the vehicle, they can flag us down that way and make a reservation that way. There'll be a tablet on board for the driver interface, and also a tablet in the dispatch, so they can run reports, look at key metrics, that kind of thing. The way it operates is it's kind of semi-autonomous. It just runs in the background, so we don't need dedicated staff to be checking on this every second like we do with our normal paratransit services. It just kind of runs in the background. We interject if we have a problem or if anything arises. The cost breakdown, so this is a pilot program. It's going to be a 1-year pilot. Transloc is going to charge us $27,000. You can see they're going to subsidize a lot of those costs during the first year. We anticipate with a small zone, our costs won't be much beyond this if we choose to operate this beyond the pilot program. And this is cost comparison based on the route we provide now, the 115, and what microtransit will look like in the future. And we anticipate estimated cost savings of over $50,000, with the majority of that coming from the wages involved. We will be able to reduce the ancillary staff required, mainly in dispatch office where it's not as hands-on as it is today. Also, our fuel charge will go down as we're not operating the bus up and down that fixed corridor all day long. We'll only operate the vehicle when we have a reservation to meet. So again, I'm seeking approval to eliminate the 115 as of December 31st this year, transition those resources to the microtransit concept, begin operation of that pilot program on January 1. We're going to have a robust public education and outreach campaign associated with this, where we inform the residents and the clients of the change transitioning from the fixed route to the microtransit. And we're excited. We feel like we may be able to transition this concept to other areas of the community in the future.
So I have a question for you. When, basically, this is going to actually make it easier for our folks to use, because then they can be there when they need to be there and get to work when they need to, instead of waiting for an hour or that sort of thing. So it's much more convenient for them to know. And that makes a big difference, because I know that's, of course, one of the biggest complaints I would get. And I'm looking forward to seeing how well this works.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So the route operates now on 60-minute frequency. So if you miss a bus, you have to wait an hour for the bus to come back. We anticipate being able to operate this service at 15-minute frequency.
Well, that's going to be phenomenal for folks that need to be able to get to work, especially down through there. And did you say I missed it, did you say you're going up to Amazon too, off of this?
Amazon is within the proposed zone.
Okay. That's the furthest north though, right?
State Avenue.
That ends, up to state, to the connector. Right. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McKiernan, did you have a question?
Yeah, just remind me, Justice, what are the hours of operation, start and stop?
5:30 to 8 o'clock p.m.
Okay.
And we'll maintain the same hours of service as
the microtransit will mirror the hours of the fixed route.
Correct.
But will decrease the wait time by a fourth.
That's our hope.
Beautiful. From an hour to 15 minutes, yeah. All right, thank you.
I think that we're really excited about what Justice has brought forward for our community to try this. I mean, it's another example of a pilot, but if it works well, we can come back and talk about other things, so.
Well, it's certainly something that a lot of folks are trying to wrap their brains around, is using more of a demand service like this, or a microtransit service like this, to try to improve our provision of services and our moving of people, and avoiding the larger costs of the fixed routes. So,
yeah, there is a concept in Johnson County that has done very well. Our pilot will be the first time that it's fully integrated with the fixed route system.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we've been having this discussion around our dinner table about how transportation services are going to morph in the world of Uber, and I think this is an example of us trying to head in that direction and being a little more cutting edge about it. I will note, when I came into office, I got us a stop at Turner Rec, so I'm a little bit sad. I'm a little bit sad to, see that not used anymore, but I think this is really going to serve our community in a much more usable fashion, and in a way that they're used to being served if they're using other rideshare services, so.
And I anticipate the stop at Turner Rec. We do have a shelter there. We can, since we do offer ride hailing on the service also, we can keep that stop in place and have that a designated ride hailing stop. So if they see a vehicle coming by and they don't make a reservation, they can just wave their arm and we'll stop and put them on board.
Well, and definitely for the short term, that stop and other places we have had stops will be great places for us to advertise this. So if someone misses the marketing, they go to wait for the bus, they're going to see a sign that says, bus isn't coming, but this is how you get what you need. All right. We do have, I think, action on both of these items?
That was my question for you.
We have action on both item 1, which is eliminating the route, and then on item 2, which is doing the microtransit. So
I move to eliminate the 115.
we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
and Markley.
Aye, and then I need a motion to implement the microtransit.
I move that we implement the microtransit service.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Definitely, yes.
Johnson,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
and Markley.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our item 3 is a request to amend our policy on substance abuse and drug and alcohol testing within the Transit Department. I see Council Jeff Conway approaching with Ms. Ramirez, and we did get a handout. This was the item team where we had additional information come in on a blue sheet. So this is our packet of revised information. Welcome.
Good evening. In front of you this evening are some clarifications and amendments that are required for the substance abuse policy that governs the FTA, Federal Transit Authority employees that are in the Transit Department. There's a combination of edits that are required by the DOT and some others that are required, what we would consider company policy.
Questions? Do you want to, I mean, if anybody read through the prior packet, do you want to summarize anything they might want to know about the difference between what we might have seen before in the new packet, or is it just more administrative?
So a lot of it is merely administrative. For example, one of the company policy changes that I can pull out readily is in our previous policy that we had for the transit employees, we used to pull randoms using the employee's social security number. Many years ago, we changed the way we pull those numbers. We have a third-party administrator that pulls the randoms, and we use their employee number, which is a 4-digit number, so we no longer use these social security numbers. So, but the policy was still reflecting that, so it's clarifications of that nature. Other clarifications that are outlined by the FTA are just clarification language that we needed to have. We had a desk audit performed by the KCATA that came back with some recommendations and clarifications that we needed to make in our policy.
Questions, team?
Well, I just want to make a comment. I appreciate you also putting in here on some of these ones that are UG versus FTA requirements, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
That way, it kind of gives me an idea of where we're being picky and adding on, and that's not a bad thing. But I appreciate you putting that in there so we know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone from the public? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
and Markley.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 4 is an update on municipal court's MyWICO.
Oh, no.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Glad to have Administrative Judge Brakovich and Judge Schultz with me tonight to give you a little bit of information about the MyWICO app and how municipal court has, in the last 4 months, adopted the MyWICO app and changed some of our applications. Make sure I know how to do this. So the MyWICO app, or Pay It, and the collaboration between the unified government and Pay It came along at the right time for the court. We were looking for another online payment vendor. The one we had previously, citizens had to be seated at a PC or a laptop to be able to pay online. That was not conducive to the way the citizens wanted to interact with our court in making payments. Additionally, they were a payment-only processor, so they didn't give us any room to grow in smart logic and technology services for the future, as well as some previous integration issues had caused some depletion of belief in that online payment mechanism. So this collaboration with the UG came along for us at the right time. Previous to 2015, retired Judge Mo, and that's it. See, he's already out of my, no, I hope he's not watching. And Judge Brakovich at the time were able to identify that first and foremost what the court needed was a good computer database to allow us to get ready for this next step into the future. And they set 2 goals at the beginning of 2015, and those 2 goals around payments were clear and concise. Citizens should be able to make partial payments online. And secondly, we needed to increase our ability to communicate with citizens through mobile devices. So again, the collaboration between the unified government and Pay It came along at the right time for us. And in July of 2018, we started the process to integrate our database and create that bridge between our database and the Pay It application. This was a process that was going to be difficult for us. We are not a one-off payment solution. As you can imagine, there are as many different circumstances around an individual as there are different ordinances and statutes that govern traffic law. So we wanted to make sure we took our time with this integration and we did not suffer the consequences from the previous integration. So between July 18 and December of 2018, we started that scripting process. We wanted that scripting process to be specific for citizens. And then in May of this year, we were able to go live and be added to the MyWICO app. Commissioners, have you all been able to use the MyWICO app for your personal business? All right. So in May of...
Yes, and my comment is yes, but not with you guys.
Oh, okay.
We frequently report code violations.
Using yours, but hey.
Judge, can you put that on the record, please?
We're a court of no record, so no problem.
So May of 2019, at the end of May, we were able to go live and we were added to the MyWICO app. And if you're a MyWICO customer, every customer in their database received a notification that you can now pay your municipal court business online through the MyWICO app. So what kind of results have we seen? They have been numerous in a short 4 months, but we have a lot of room to go. First and foremost, we've had an increased use of this smart technology or smart logic, and I know that that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but at the end of the day, it means that as a citizen, you're not going to our website, clicking around trying to find the information that is specific to your situation. You're not walking up to my window and having to explain to a clerk who does this all day long and you've now done it one time in your life what your situation is. You are able to get online, look your ticket up, and we drive you to the right place. This is going to sound counterintuitive, but the increase in the MyWICO app has created a stronger citizen interaction. And let me back up there and talk about that for a minute. Unlike normal circumstances where you have your ticket and you write your check and you stick it in the mail and you never hear about it again, in the interactions with my MyWICO app, you get an immediate response, but then my staff follows up with you to say, thanks for making that partial payment, here's your next court date. And they can communicate with you in the way that you want to be communicated with, not the way I've decided you need to be communicated with. So if you want that notice sent via email and not regular mail, I can communicate with you in that way. If you want to have no communication with us at all, you just want to get your receipt, great, you have your receipt and we can move on down the road. It's also reduced the impact of requiring citizens to come into the courthouse to do their business or find a stamp. And I think sometimes those are equally as difficult in my house to find a stamp. But now our citizens can make their payments online, and they don't have to do what we see so many of them have to do, which is take off an entire day of work because they do shift work and they can't take an hour off to run downtown and pay their ticket. It's given us the ability to do push notifications. If your doctor's office and your beautician can remind you on your phone that you have an appointment tomorrow, I should be able to remind you that you have court tomorrow. So if you are on the MyWICO app and you have done business and you have a ticket that you're making partial payments on, you get that notification from us. Let's say life happened and you forgot. You get a notification the day after. Hey, don't forget, you missed. Here's a way that you can deal with that situation now to avoid being in a worse situation in the future. We've also obviously had an increase because of my excitement level in mobile transactions, and we have exceeded our goal that we set for ourselves, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But first and foremost, we met that #1 goal that was set in 2015. Citizens who are making partial payments do not have to spend gas money to come up here to make a $50 payment. They can do it from this mobile app. So let's talk about 2 of those in depth. One is that smart logic piece that we spoke about, and these are only 3 examples of the smart logic that's built in that we are utilizing at this point. You can find all your business with the court. So if you get on other online payment mechanisms and you say, here is my case number, or my ticket number, and I want to make this payment, you are stuck making that payment for that one item. In this situation, you type in your name and your birth date, and it tells you all of your business with the court, so you don't miss anything. Additionally, it helps the citizen prioritize their payments, but still keeps them in control. They're still in the driver's seat. We don't take that away from them. So in the bottom left corner, that was a good pun, wasn't it? I wish I would have actually thought about that when I said it. In that bottom left corner, you'll see 3 tickets listed with the, oh my gosh, this thing is on fire, little triangle. And down at the bottom, it says, we recommend paying these cases first because they could have an implication to your driver's license. We're not telling you you have to pay them. We're just making a suggestion. Likewise, if you have a probation case, you might want to pay that one off first versus pay that next ticket off in your payment plan. And third, it gives citizens information that they might need without providing legal advice or legal direction. So in the bottom right corner of your screen, there's an information box that pops up if there's an indication in our database that that citizen could have a suspended driver's license. We don't tell them what they have to do. We're just giving them possible information that they could use. And from their phone, they can simply click on, go to the website and check the status of my driver's license, and it routes them back around to the state of Kansas so that they can check the status of their driver's license on their own. And the telephone number if they'd like to call. Yes, ma'am.
So I noticed it had down at the bottom of there, you know, a summons and some other things like that where people would probably like to know. Maybe we should all just get on there and check it out to make sure that, that there isn't something on there.
I always advise running your license plate number because you never know. I know I'm getting ready to have a student driver, and when she takes my vehicle, I'd like to know if she got a parking ticket.
Okay.
I'd like to know. So, you know, it just would be nice if I knew she got a parking ticket maybe before the letter came in the mail.
Yes, congratulations, parents. Get on there and check it out.
So some additional information about an increase in those data-driven transactions. This is not a blow your socks off kind of number to anybody but us maybe. But we had traditionally been at 2.5% of all of the monies that we collected were done so by a mobile device or actually a PC. We are up to 6.3% in 4 months. So to us, our goal of 5%, 100% increase has been, to us, exceeded. And we can only imagine that we have so much more room to grow. So, and additionally, the transactions completed on devices have increased. So the number of transactions and the amount collected have both increased twofold or more. So let's talk about a little bit of the future. So we've got this door cracked open, and our collaboration with Pay It is just going to blow the hinges off. And these are the 4 of the things that we're super excited about. One is making more cases payable. We have obviously some rules and restrictions on what requires people to come into court, but we have held back some of these cases to be payable to make sure we were confident with the application. So being able to pay diversion or probation cases online is what's happening next. But we are using data to drive the priority. So Pay It can tell us how many people look up what and whether or not they are successful in making those payments to help us say, right here is where we should increase next or open the door a little wider. Secondly, we are part of the digital services platform initiative through Open Cities. We've been able to put up digital forms online to allow citizens to do business with the court without coming in. Pay It and Open Cities already have a collaboration together, so we are now going to be able to post an online form to allow a citizen to maybe, say, apply for expungement and also make their payment online as well without coming in. That's really going to help citizens who live outside of a 50-mile radius be able to do business of that magnitude with the court. There's an existing relationship between Pay It and the Kansas Department of Motor Vehicles. You guys, most of you, I think all of you raised your hands. We've probably all paid our car tags or paid for our car tags online. Commissioner McKiernan, did you have to go find your insurance card to do that? Nope. It pulls it straight from the database. That opens the door for the court to be able to say, if that's a existing relationship and a citizen has a fail to carry their car insurance with them, and that's part of their citation, which requires a court appearance, can we go out and pull that insurance, deliver it to the court, now make your seatbelt ticket payable, and keep you from having to come into court on that day? And lastly, the thing I'm most excited about, but is probably the fourth on this list of things to do, the idea that we can do bonding in the field will put us ahead of every other court in the area who are looking right now at bonding practices in the field, but they are mired with issues of application on the back end. Being able to have these two systems integrated might allow in the future for some arrest warrants, some defendants who have arrest warrants to post that bond in the field electronically. This could have incredible implications not only to our local law enforcement officers, but regionally. So if a citizen is stopped in Johnson County in the city of Shawnee, the officer sees that they have a warrant, that defendant can pull their phone out and maybe post bond or make their payment right on the spot instead of having to be transported.
So on the bonding, then, the bonder company can get on there and show the bonding for a particular person.
Well, one of the things I'm very proud of is we don't use bonding agencies.
Okay, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, our bonds are low enough to allow citizens to post them, and in most cases are just the amount that's owed on the ticket. So having citizens be able to post that bond on their own or just pay the ticket off. Why take a bond if all they need to do is pay the?
Asking.
Yeah. So all of this drives us toward this concept of citizen access, but to an efficient court. Having citizens have access to an inefficient court does more harm than good. We want to make sure that we're an efficient court that citizens have access to. So I'm glad we could briefly share some information with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to look or to work with a local company that values the same things that the court values in citizen access and being able to wrap technology around. They're an amazing company to work with, and we're very happy to be one of the first groups to be able to work with them. They've provided us some, would you like to model, Judge? They've provided us some T-shirts for the for the commissioners if you would like them. They're on the back table, and if you have any questions, please let us know.
Commissioner Bynum?
I have a question a couple of slides back. So I'm interested in your data on where you went from 2.5 to 6.3. So this is data of transactions completed on mobile devices. Is that right? Increase
Collections.
in collections by device.
By devices, so that could be your phone, your PC, your tablet, any device. It doesn't necessarily have to be mobile.
So the change is that prior to Pay It, My WICO, 2.5% of all of your payments were by a device.
By a PC, yeah.
And now it's up to 6.3.
Correct.
So 93.7 are still being paid in another way.
In another way, either be by mail or at the window.
And that's great. I mean, I appreciate the goal you set and the, fact that you exceeded it. Deputy Administrator Howes, do you know offhand, I thought I saw very recently a statistic about Wyandotte County, which actually surprised me, saying that 80% of our folks have a mobile device. And that is contrary to data that I have seen and worked with myself through my paying job, which deals with older adults. So I've done a lot of work with digital inclusion for older adults. So I realize those two things may be vastly different. And that's why I'm asking you, do you agree that 80% of the population of Wyandotte County has a mobile device?
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. In fact, if you look at sort of national data as well, the areas that are seeing the age groups that are seeing the fastest growth in mobile adoption are actually the older, 55 and above, and those households that have the 30,000 and below in their income, which becomes for both of those groups a lot of times the primary way that they access digital services, period. So the idea of a desktop is not accessible to them. It's not part of their sort of day-to-day lives. So making these services available on a mobile application that they can access from their phone, is meeting them where they are.
Also, may I interrupt real quick or interject? So when we were at 2.5%, we had to be on a PC, which I don't have a PC at my poor 8-year-old does not have a PC at his house. We had to do full payments too. You didn't get to do partial payment. So now through Pay It, we can do a partial payment of $50 or more. So this, for me, is a very encouraging leap because this is an entirely different culture shift for our defendants. Not only do we have to earn their trust that we know what to do with partial payments, we have to teach them that we do partial payments. So what Pay It has been incredibly helpful in my announcements is being able to say, hey, this is the same app you're going to be able to use to register your vehicle. And I think there's a little bit more buy-in. So I just wanted to say that is for us in a culture shift going from all or nothing now to partial. I anticipate that will keep going up the more we earn their trust.
And I think you're right. It just has me thinking about, ways that we can, again, help market use of the app and that this is just yet for you another way to have compliance and have somebody inside the boundaries of the law rather than out there delinquent or, possibly having fines add up and things like that. So I'm just thinking about ways now that, given that that's true, how can we help you promote that more?
One of the ways, maybe you want to speak to your work with the police department as well, in terms of trying to put this, well, go ahead.
So we were able to revise the citizen ticket or the ticket that's delivered to the citizen at the time and list this information on the back. But what's encouraging is the police officers, and I will hear citizens come back in and say this to my clerks, oh yeah, that's right, I could pay that online. The officer told me that when they issued me the ticket. So having that kind of support from the PD has been fantastic. And I say PD, also the Sheriff's Department and KUPD. Having that kind of support has been fantastic. But I think that the more we talk about it, the judges talk about it in the courtroom, the citizens talk about it, and then we have a publication that's out on a regular basis that it's been listed in the publication. But also, when you're paying your car tags and you register, you now get those mobile notifications. Hey, don't forget you can pay any tickets online as well. And every time that we do a release or we open up a bigger payment availability or different type of case that can be paid, Pay It will send out that notification to all of its registered users. So that helps us out a bit. But we do have some ways to go. From other court clerks that I work with, they're happy with a 15% online payment. I think that if we move in the right direction, we could be exceeding 15%, keeping in mind that we are also a high misdemeanor court. So unlike courts that are majority traffic violations, we have a high misdemeanor population. Those tickets are not going to be payable online until such time as we get to a place where they are making payments on a fine.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. We are not an all-traffic court.
Thank you.
Commissioner McKiernan?
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the work. Assistant Administrator Howes has certainly got many emails from me, and I must say that this application continues to evolve to get what I think is more user-friendly and more useful. As I'm looking at my app, I have 311 requests, I have my property tax on here, I have my vehicles on here. But now this last one, I just want to, you and I corresponded, it would have been in December, about weird people who want to pay their parking ticket the same day they get it. At that time, we couldn't do it.
Yes.
And so I'm just curious, have we been able to shrink that lag between delivery of the ticket and ability to pay the ticket electronically.
I would love to tell you that the app did that, but my staff has done that. So the app is fantastic, but only payment online once the ticket is filed and entered. And we have dedicated a staff member who enters parking tickets and has gotten that entry window down to about 72 business hours. So it's not immediate yet. And I can't give the credit to the app. I have to give it to the staff that enters those parking tickets over and over again all day long. But we did put a publication on the back of the ticket that says you might have an up to, I don't think we put a time frame, but there could be a couple of days until you can find it. Once we move into the concept of having mobile tickets again, it would be simultaneous. In fact, even if there was a lag, what Pay It does for other organizations is it will take your payment and it'll hold your payment and it'll go out and hit the court system until it finds it. So if there's a 2-hour lag between the mobile ticket being filed and the ticket being issued, Pay It will accommodate that.
And I really appreciate your willingness to change the messaging on the ticket, because it used to just say, go here, you can
Right,
pay.
right.
It didn't say there might be a lag time. So I really appreciate the fact that you've made that change on the tickets and that you're still looking for ways to continue to improve the utility of the system.
Absolutely.
Well done.
Thank you.
I might just add one piece, I think, to your point, Commissioner, because you see it actually in delinquent real estate, made adjustments to their language and their notifications. Treasury did the same thing when they reformatted the bills last year to put online payments first, and courts has done that. And these little sort of nudges make huge differences in how people, and the choices people make about how they pay. And so we've been sort of deliberate across multiple sort of departments as we go through these projects to think about how are people receiving that information, either visually reading it and then acting on that, and then ordering those choices in a way that sort of steers people, they have options, but steers them to the online choice that is easier for them and easier for the organization to work through as well.
For example, I think, Commissioner, what I'd say is we changed our process to do hard mail notification for any defendant who was issued a parking citation. We take a My WICO app business card and we throw it in every single one of those envelopes.
Commissioner Philbrook?
So I'm going to go back to the percentage of people that have devices. So I'm going to get down in the weeds on this and ask for a clarification. So when you say 80%, are we talking about from birth to death? Or, I mean, what age group are we talking about? Are we talking families? What is that of?
Well, I'm not sure exactly the statistic Commissioner Bynum was referring to, but that the Pew Research Center has done national studies on mobile adoption, over time, and I think the last one was in 2018, and that's where we look at the adoption across those different age groups. And I can see it in my third grader now talks about her classmates having mobile devices. So it used to be something that you got it in high school, but you can see it kind of trickling down into younger age groups, and you can see it expanding into older age groups as well. So that's a roundabout answer to your question.
I'll just say for my Argentine neighborhood, there was a survey at around the time I came on the commission, and the specific question was, do you have access to the different devices? So maybe the third grader doesn't have a phone, but they get to play on mom's phone, that would count as access. So that was the way that question was phrased, and it was 75% at that time. So I can see that kind of falling into the same statistical window.
Okay, so it's kind of a glittering generality sort of thing. Okay. Well, I'm just asking because I'm trying to understand, when we start talking data, what we're saying.
And I think it's also important to note that we're preserving multiple channels. So if somebody, they can come in if they prefer that, if it makes them more comfortable, they can do it by mail, if that's their preference. But they also now have this other channel that allows them to do their business online, to not have to come physically to a cashier window to conduct that business. So, we are trying to provide more options and more choices, but preserving those, recognizing that not everybody, wants to do their business the same way.
Well, I know 10 years ago, if we'd had this, I probably would have had to have a 10-year-old get on there and do it for me. But fortunately, I know how to do it now, so thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a, sorry, do we have a comment from the public? Come on up to the mic. State your name and city of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Pavel. I live in Kansas City. And I think that an app is not the ideal scenario. I would prefer a website if that was an option, because apps they clutter my screen. And I just try to avoid apps in general because it's an extra step to install software. Also, I heard about different payment methods. I think the future of online currency is Bitcoin. If that could be an option, I think that would be amazing. And if you could make the software available for sale for other cities, I think that would be also great, so that people don't have to start from the bottom up to invest so much money in software.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Yes, Commissioner, and thank you for those comments, but absolutely, you can go to the website and pay on a desktop if that's what you would prefer, and it gives you the same feel and the same options.
Thanks. All right. We have 2 remaining items, and these items are on our public agenda. That's a time when members of the public can apply to the clerk's office to come before us and make a statement to the committee, and all standing committees have that opportunity. So we have 2 items on our public agenda tonight. Item 1 is an appearance from Tisher Mank. Is Ms. Mank present? Regarding children's safety and gun violence among teens. Final call for Ms. Mank. I don't see her in the audience. All right, so we will move along. Our last item for the evening is an appearance of Pavel Suhina regarding values as outlined in his September 9th request. Please come to the microphone again, Mr. Suhina, and state your name, in case I have mispronounced it in particular, and your city of residency again for the record, and you'll be given 5 minutes to make your comments. All comments must pertain to the topic.
My name is Pavel Suhina. I live in Kansas City, Kansas. And I recorded my video ahead of time so I don't mess up. I came here today as a resident of the city for you and the audience to bear witness to my values. I believe that building codes on private property should be voluntary and aesthetics like mowing the lawn voluntary. Acceptable obscenity in copyrighted movies, videos, and images should be expanded upon. Only if the author tells real people in the audience to physically harm other real people in the real world should it be illegal. Victimless crimes such as bestiality, buying underage-looking waifu dolls, or consenting cannibalism should be legal. All recreational drug use should be legalized. Wearing clothes in public should be voluntary. Age of consent should be voted on by the public every 100 years. Consenting public fighting should be legal as long as they don't maim each other or break bones. Traffic signs and lights should be recommendations, not enforceable by fines or considered as crimes if exceeded. Feeding wildlife in a city should be legal, and a rooster isn't too loud for a city either. Business licensing and gun licensing should be voluntary. Medical treatment, such as vaccinations, should also be voluntary. And finally, we should remove recurring taxes on land, buildings, and income. I encourage the people in the audience to take back the freedoms our government has taken from us by voting in representatives that respect human liberty, and to those who insist on criminalizing victimless crimes, I urge you to look back at the spirit of our founding fathers, who foreseen oppressive governments such as we have today, that disrespect human liberty and autonomy. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. on a side note, I'm aware of informal ways of communication that pin age groups to numbers 1 through 4, which can be represented as patterns in the backgrounds of videos. I think that is interesting information for you too. Thank you. I came here to
Thank you. That was our final item for this evening. Thank everyone for their attendance here tonight, and we are adjourned.